Welcome back. In today's video, we are going to discuss the benefits of doing a personal statement in support of your VA disability claim. We're going to cover what should be in your personal statement and how you can craft the most effective personal statement.
Thanks for joining us. My name is Greg Rada, and what we've learned by working with the VA is that your case is going to do best when it is spoon-fed to the VA. So we are going to talk about what a personal statement is and how to draft the best one you possibly can. So let's start with what exactly it is in the context of VA.
I guess there's two types of statements. There's a statement that a veteran writes themselves in support of their claim, and then a personal statement could also refer to buddy's statement. You'll hear these things also called lay statements or witness statements. It's all the same thing. It's you, the veteran, or someone else that knows you doing a written letter, written statement in support of your claim.
Okay, so how does it differ from other evidence, like your medical records and, what's in your service documents?
Well, it's written testimony from you, not a doctor, unless you are a doctor. Then I guess it's written testimony from you and a doctor. But it's essentially your chance to explain your claim and maybe get into the record things that aren't captured by your medical records. So it just gives more context and explanation to the VA about your claim, and that can help you win your claim.
And we hear from examiners and know from personal relationships that we have with doctors that review this stuff that the more context they have when evaluating your claim, the better off it is. It's the same with anything. And so the more detail that can be provided, the better off it's going to be. And oftentimes your medical records or your, in-service treatment records, they just don't have the same detail that you have as somebody who is experiencing what you're experiencing.
Yeah, I mean, when doctors are writing medical records, they're going as quickly as possible because everyone's under pressure to see more patients. So a well-written lay statement from you or your wife or husband or friend that knows you can give really valuable context to an examiner and help you get better results from that C&P exam.
Okay. And so, that's kind of what I was going to ask next was how can a well-drafted personal statement influence your claim?
Well, it can address things that aren't covered by the medical evidence or missing from the medical evidence. The biggest thing that comes to mind is if you had an injury in service and you never reported it, you're not going to have any medical records documenting that. And so really the only way that you can prove that you had that injury or this disability started in service is to write about it and, testify about it.
What are the key components that you think make a personal statement effective?
I think they have to be from the heart. I like them when they're written as if, a vet was just talking to someone and explaining their situation. I think they should be detailed but concise. Keep in mind, VA employees are rewarded for how quickly they move. And so if you submit a 10-page novel, there's probably a 0% chance that anyone at the VA is ever going to read all 10 pages from that. They're going to maybe scan it for 30 seconds. So try and distill the really important information down into that statement so you're not writing a lengthy novel. Focus on the issues that you need to win your claim.
So authenticity, you just want it to be like a genuine statement, and then concise. Directly on that point, is there a length that you think is too long? Like, is there a page limit that you think like, okay, that's the tipping point where it's probably just no matter what you're putting in there, it's too long?
It depends on the complexity of the case and what you're describing. I mean, we try and keep our statements, a paragraph or 2 paragraphs at most. But, when a spouse is writing maybe about mental health symptoms, that would be a page or 2 pages. It really all depends what the disability is.
Okay, so authenticity and conciseness. Anything else before I move on to the next question as far as what makes great personal statement?
I mean, one of the most important things is that you're addressing the relevant parts of your claim. So if you're fighting over an increased rating for migraines, you don't need to talk about how the migraine started 20 years ago. That's not relevant to your current rating. So, a statement in that situation should be focused on what are your current symptoms to support an increased rating at that current time. If you start writing about 20 years ago, VA doesn't care about that. That's not what they're going to use to give you a higher rating now. They want to know what your symptoms are now.
Okay, so just really deliberate with what you put in there. Remember your audience. Like Greg said, these are, employees who are incentivized by the quantity of how many claims they can move through. So you need to keep that in mind when you're drafting this. What's going to be relevant to the person reading it and trying to decide your current claim. This sort of is overlapping with what mistakes to avoid. Obviously, being too wordy and off topic are mistakes that people fall into sometimes. Are there any other mistakes that you see that are common that negatively impact?
Yeah, I mean, you need to be consistent with the medical record, or if you think the medical record's wrong, you need to explain that in your statement. This is one of the areas where having a lawyer can be really helpful because your lawyer should be familiar with what the evidence already shows. And what I mean by this is if you come in and write something that completely conflicts with years of medical history, VA is going to say you're not credible. They're going to say, you've been going to the doctor for 5 years and you keep telling your doctor that you only have prostrating migraines once a month. And now in this written statement, out of nowhere, you're like, oh no, I have migraines every other day. VA is going to look at that and they're going to say, well, you're not believable. And so you want to be consistent with the evidence that's already in the record, or if you disagree with the evidence that's in the record, you need to explain why. I only report to my doctor the really, really severe migraines, which happen once a month, but I have lesser severe migraines, every other day. Because the worst thing you want to do with VA is ruin your credibility. If they think you're making things up or exaggerating, that is obviously never going to help your claim, and it's going to greatly diminish the value of anything that you tell VA.
Is there a specific form for this personal statement, or is this just something that folks type up and send in?
We use forms most of the time. I feel like they get tracked easier in VA's rating system. Like they have a specific label if you use a personal statement form. There's 2 forms that you can use with a VA. And I think VA is phasing out this first form, which we still use. But again, it doesn't matter. Like VA can't reject your statement because it's on the wrong form. Like once you write something and submit it to VA, it's in the record. Like it could be on a napkin. So the form doesn't really matter. But we use a VA form 21-4138. And you'll see here that VA says to use this to provide additional information to support your claim. And I'll just open it up here. You put the veteran's contact information in the beginning, and then it's just a blank box where you can type out your statement, and then it needs to be signed and dated at the end. The other form, that's a newer form, is the VA form 21-10210, and VA's says to use this form to submit a formal statement to support your VA claim or the claim of another veteran or eligible family member. And VA kindly explains that people sometimes call this statement a buddy statement. And we'll open this form up. It's pretty much identical. So it's a veteran's identification information. And then they have this separate section for claimant's identification information. You could fill out both of these. You would only fill out section 2 if the claimant is not a veteran. And so that would be surviving spouses or surviving children that are making a claim for survivor benefits. So they would fill out this top portion, the veteran's information, and then this bottom portion for their information because it's their claim. But then you'll see here, it's just a blank form where you write your statement.
So are these forms are interchangeable?
Yeah, this form is probably better for buddy statements where someone other than the veteran's writing it, because down at the bottom here, it has the contact information for whoever's writing it. Or on the other form, that's not there. And so you can see here, they can check the relationship to the veteran. They served with the vet, their family or friend, coworker, supervisor, and then they can give their email and phone number and their name, the signature and date block down here. Alternatively, you can, use any Word document processing software and type up your own statement or handwrite it. If you handwrite it or type it up, you want to make sure it has relevant information like the veteran's name, their social security number, and then you want to sign and date it. But yeah, like I said, I mean, you could literally write something on a napkin and take a picture of it and upload it, and that's going to count as a personal statement. VA can't just say, oh no, this isn't a valid form. We're not going to look at what you wrote. If you write it and you submit it, they have to look at it.
Are personal statements required when you're filing a claim?
Nope, nothing's required except submitting the claim form. But, you greatly increase your chances by doing a personal statement. Initial claims, I think a personal statement's really helpful because you can walk VA through the claim. You can explain to them why you're claiming it. You can point out relevant evidence so they don't miss it, make it easier for them to find it, and that'll increase your chances. And then if you're doing an appeal, you can directly address, the holes in your case. Like, a VA C&P examiner says, oh yeah, he injured his back in 1980, but he didn't have any treatment until 2010. And there's a 30-year gap of him having back issues. Well, you can write a statement saying, yeah, I injured in 1980 and I continued to have back issues up until present time. I just didn't go to a doctor because I knew they were just going to tell me to, take Tylenol and rest. But, this statement is to confirm that I've had a chronic back problem ever since I injured it in 1980.
And so do you always submit a personal statement with all of your claims?
Not always, but we use them a lot. They're very powerful. And, there's tons of case law about personal statements. Like one of the things VA likes to do is just disregard your personal statement because there's no contemporaneous medical records backing up what you're saying. And there's a case that specifically says VA can't do that. So personal statements are really, really valuable. Going back to one of your prior questions, mistakes to avoid, a personal statement has to be limited to what you're qualified and capable of observing. You want to focus on like the facts. Like, an example is we recently had a case where the board said that our vet was saying that he was entitled to a specific rating for his heart. And the board said, well, he's not qualified to say that he qualifies for this specific rating. And he wasn't doing that. He was saying like, these are the levels of activity at which I start to have symptoms of heart failure, at which he is qualified. He's qualified to say, like, if I had to do a push lawnmower in my yard, I would have breathlessness and chest pain. And so you want to stick to what you personally observe and feel and your symptoms, as opposed to like trying to act like a lawyer and saying, you need to give me this 30% rating because the, rating schedule says this. Keep it to like what you experience personally and that you're capable of observing.
That's helpful. And also that reminds me too, the power of specific examples, which is something that you talk about a lot, how oftentimes when people are writing these or even, meeting with an examiner in person, they don't realize how vague they're being. And so can you give an example of a specific example?
Yeah, I mean, instead of just saying migraines interfere with work, you can write that out, but then follow it up and go into detail. Last month, I had to leave halfway through the day because I had a severe prostrating attack. Or I stayed at work, but I didn't get any work done because the migraine pain was so bad I couldn't focus on anything. And I just sat at my desk for 8 hours.
Okay. And I guess the last thing is just when you're doing a personal statement and you are represented by an attorney, oftentimes you're getting more guidance and assistance in writing this than just on your own. So when our clients are doing a personal statement, do you assist them with that?
Yeah, we always help our clients draft up personal statements. We usually write them out for them, not saying that we make stuff up or just like draft it. We have a telephone meeting and we ask them questions about their disabilities and then transcribe their answers, and basically draft it up as they're talking to us because we know exactly what needs to be in there.
And so that's how we can avoid vagueness or whatnot. Is if there's a hole or there's something missing, then you'll just ask them about it on the spot, type it into the form.
Yeah, we've done thousands and thousands of personal statements. So we know how to keep it hyper-focused on what the relevant information is.
So those are the two forms. We recommend brainstorming beforehand so that you can be focused, relevant, concise, detailed, and getting a personal statement submitted to support your claim.
Hope everyone found that helpful. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and thanks for following us.
Bye-bye.